Welcome to the Missions Podcast, the show that explores your hard questions on missions, theology, and practice to help goers think and thinkers go. I'm Alex Kochman, Director of Communications and Media with ABWE, coming to you again here from the Radius Conference at Grace Community Church in Sun Valley, California. Day 2 of the conference as well, and we've got another day full of exciting interviews for you with some mission and ministry leaders from across the country. And I'm joined by my new friend, Brian Murphy here. Brian, thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you. Thanks for
So we were just
part.
talking for a few minutes before we started recording. There's a lot of connections between you and ABWE, which the Missions Podcast is a ministry of ABWE.
Right.
You've also been involved in Radius, and so for someone who's new to this kind of whole network, explain to them who you are, your background in ministry, and then the ministry that you serve with now.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I'm Brian Murphy, and I was in pastoral ministry for 38 years. I had the privilege of serving on the board of Radius for many years, and have gone down and spoken at Radius and continue to go down and speak. And just consider that such a great privilege to be a part of this incredible ministry, and really get to know the students and be involved in their lives. And I helped start Excel Ministries, the ministry I'm now a part of, about 30 years ago with a couple other pastors. And last year came on full-time with Excel. And it's a privilege.
As Executive Director of Excel Ministries.
Yes, Executive Director of Excel Ministries.
So Extra Large Ministries, or tell us what that stands for.
So Excel stands for Excellence in Leadership. And it is our goal to help the local church train its missionaries, elders, and pastors within the local church for full-time ministry.
Now, you know, excellence starts with an E.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Okay. All right. You've had that conversation
We've had
before.
that conversation.
All right. Fair enough. Excel sounds a lot cooler. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, I love the model of your ministry that you're trying to train not only missionaries, not only, students that are up and coming, but you're also looking at training pastors, training lay elders. So, but there's a million training organizations, right? So explain to us what that looks like, what maybe sets you apart.
Yeah, it's a great question. We often think of Excel as, think about it this way. A medical doctor goes to be a doctor. There's two major components to be a doctor. They go to medical school, and then they go do a residency. In the theological term, or ministry term, the medical school may be seminary, Bible college. But nobody would ever get out of medical school and go right to be a doctor.
Right.
That residency is super important. Right. The residency is they sort of get the head knowledge in medical school, and then they go to a residency and come under an experienced doctor to put in practice what they just know. And that doctor is overseeing them, critiquing them, speaking into their life, correcting them, if you will, sometimes. And then they're learning to put in practice what they've learned before they go out and be on their own. And we see that as a key component of what we're doing. We offer both a sort of a medical school where we're really demanding that our missions interns learn Bible, systematic theology, and missiology. When they graduate, there is an ordination exam, 3-hour ordination exam that they have to take with their Bible. They have to defend their Bible. They have to defend systematic theology. So we take that very seriously. So there is that component, but there also is, like I mentioned, the residency. So how do we take all this knowledge and now put it into practice under the local church, under the leadership of the local church, getting to put into practice what they've learned? So how do I evangelize? How do I go, meet people cross-culturally? How do I do a wedding and a funeral and get involved in an elder meeting? It's sad that so many people are going into ministry and never been to an elder meeting, never led an elder meeting.
I mean, part of that's my story. I finished my undergraduate in biblical studies at a pretty young age, a couple of years early. Nobody wants to hire a super young pastor, right? But what happens in so many cases, maybe you've seen this as well, is you just end up taking a youth ministry job for 2 years.
Right.
Making mistakes that you don't necessarily need to make because nobody's bringing you into that kind of an intentional mentoring relationship to get you ready for more of a full-time or ordained form of ministry, right?
Yeah, we see it all the time. That's what happened to me as well. So that's how Excel got started. We were 3 youth pastors at the time, having interns, and they were playing games and making copies, and we were like, well, maybe we should think about this, and we're going to be in ministry for a long time. How do we be much more intentional about training these interns for ministry so we don't make the same mistakes? And so we've transferred that, to missions as well.
Well, and so let's talk about that transfer to missions as well, too. I know you're passionate that missionaries would be trained. Obviously, you're involved on the Radius board for about 11 years. You're also passionate that missionaries would be known by their churches and be loved and be sent out well. So talk to us about how XL Ministries is doing that.
Really, again, birthed from me being a senior pastor, sending out missionaries, and embarrassed to say the first missionaries that we sent out was abysmal failure on so many levels, mostly on my level and our level as elders, really just not understanding how this works. And so learning the hard way. And but learning, of course, that they need to know their Bible, they need to know theology, and they need to know a solid biblical missiology. And then, and very importantly, we need to know them. We need to know the missionaries. Far too often, missionary comes to the leadership and says, I want to be a missionary, and great, here's a sending agency, go be a free agent, here's a plane ticket, you know.
You got a pulse, great, go.
Exactly. And so it was really our desire to say, no, how do we as leadership speak into these missionaries' lives for at least a couple of years, 2 or 3 years? How do we speak into their life, their marriage, their parenting, their personal lives, all these things that often can and do take people off of the field, right? Their parenting isn't working, right? Their marriage is falling apart. They're not good teammates. They don't have the comprehension that I'm going to go suffer, and I've got to stick this out. You know, I'm gonna have down days, but I can't quit. So speaking into their life positively and helpfully critiquing them, and them getting to know us, and them getting to know me as their pastor, their elders, the people in their church. We would encourage our missions interns at Excel, especially if they're single and no kids, or married couple with no kids, go be a part of as many Sunday schools or home groups as you can. Get to know as many people in the church as you can, so that, as we've talked about, you're not a postcard or the magnet on the fridge. And people in the church just go, I know them, I've seen them. But that people are really involved and in their life and invested in their life. So the church doesn't say, we have missionaries over there, but the church can really say, we have a mission over there in Papua New Guinea, in India, in wherever. This is our mission over there. Huge.
Now, one of the things we were talking about before we started rolling here was Radius graduates will come out of the program. I know you've worked with Radius graduates and people that have been through similar programs as well. And sometimes your advice to them isn't necessarily even to go to the field right away, because of maybe some of the churches that they're coming from, right? I've had that conversation a lot with Radius grads, and they're eager to go, and I appreciate that. Very eager. I mean, they're incredible. We've had so many students who they don't even want to do the internship. They're like, I want to go. I don't need an internship. Tag me in, I don't need Radius. I don't need, I want to go. And that's just a bad idea. But we've never had students who come through Excel or internship that have gone through the internship, then gone to Radius, and then said, oh, no, I didn't need that. Like, all of them are like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And oh my gosh, I needed the internship. I definitely needed Radius. I needed that. And now I'm so glad that I waited. And so I encourage the students at Radius and other places, look, if you don't know your leadership, if you don't know the people in your church, don't just go to the field. You don't want to be that
postcard on the fridge, man. Go back for some period of time. Go be involved in leadership. Go be involved in missions in your church. Just go serve and go get to know. Be intentional about getting to know your pastor and the leadership and the people in the church for a year or two.
The intent of going, too.
Absolutely,
right,
absolutely. The plan is to go.
Yeah.
But don't just go as the Lone Ranger over there. Go with the full support and investment of your church. So it's worth the effort to go back and
that's biblical
and build
too.
Absolutely.
That's biblical. Acts 13. How much time did Paul and Barnabas spend in Antioch before they were finally sent out? Right. They were doing ministry in that context. They were a known commodity in that church. So Brian, really excited hearing about this ministry. How can people learn more about XL Ministries?
Yeah, well, they can go to xlministries.org and find out more about pastoral training, elder training, leadership training, and certainly missions training as well.
Yeah.
And contact us, and we will be happy to do it. And just so you know, all of our material is free. All of our time is free. We'll come to your church. We'll help oversee the training. Of course, I want to emphasize all the training is done in the local church under the leadership of that church. We just provide some high oversight of that and provide the structure so the leadership doesn't have to, reinvent the wheel. But everything we do is free to the church, free to the interns. It's all on our dime. And but xlministries.org, we would be humbled to come and help the church.
I love hearing about that. I mean, seminary, Bible college, they're expensive.
They are expensive.
And we're raising up lay elders in our church. We would love to be sending out missionaries and church planters in the coming years. And the options for training them, sometimes they're cost prohibitive. Sometimes there's issues with people have jobs and families. You don't want to pull them away from the church to train them and maybe never see them again. And so there's such a need for what you're doing. So thanks for the service that you're offering to the church.
Welcome. It's our privilege.
Excellent. xlministries.org?
Yes, xlministries.org.
All right, check it out.
All right.
And thank you for joining the Missions Podcast today. We'll keep bringing you exclusives here from day 2 of the Radius Conference. Keep following the Missions Podcast in your feed, on your podcast app, or on YouTube. Remember, the Missions Podcast is a ministry of abwe.org. To learn more, go to abwe.org. That website that I mentioned, and of course leave a positive rating and review on your platform of choice. That'll help other people discover the content and be blessed by it. Thanks again, Brian. We'll see you here for our next exclusive. Stay tuned.